Epicenter of the New York City, New Jersey earthquake was near Trump National Golf Club. Ground shook very hard. What a great quote. I don't think near is fair. I think at is a better way to put it. So you have, here's the image of the epicenter of the earthquake. Notice the highways here. Notice everything. You can pull up Trump's golf club. It's literally right there. It's there. The Trump Golf Club is the epicenter, thus proving Trump is either going to save humanity or condemn it. What say you, panel?
Do we have any reports of damage from Bedminster?
I don't think there's any damage.
I think a garbage can tipped over.
Right.
I think that
they will rebuild.
Just like Ruth Bader Ginsburg wants you to think the Constitution is alive, I think the Earth is alive. I think it is. I think there, at the very least, it's a lot of living organisms making up one big organism, kind of like our bodies with all these living cells making up one living organism. And I think this is not a coincidence.
Do you think it's a conscious rock?
The Earth
or
is
at least
mad at
sentient.
Trump?
Or something about
Earth
Trump.
has been watching MSNBC too much.
Yeah, it was in Taiwan and now it's at Bedminster. I mean, it could just be total coincidence. The magnetic nature of the universe and earthquakes, lightning, and the way that magma is magnetic and flows, and like it's all kind of connected.
I think Letitia James just filed a motion saying he overvalued this property. Didn't write that it was on a fault line. So like,
is that true though?
No, just
because that's actually that's people were saying that Letitia James is threatening to bring up charges against Trump for the earthquake, but that he didn't. He overvalued it.
Never
that actually makes sense.
He said never had an earthquake, 0% chance in a filing 20 years ago, and she's got him now. So, but yeah,
it's the Ramapo fault that goes under New Jersey.
We live in a simulation. And the Mandela effect is because they can't erase all of our memories when the simulation changes. I'm kidding, by the way, but like, it's just, there's so many weird things that go on.
It's insane.
Yeah, it was an earthquake. Everyone's like, wow, did you hear this morning? We were doing the show and like people are texting like, there's an earthquake. And then they're like, oh, and by the way, it was like at Trump's golf club.
Before this, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, put that in a book. No one would believe it.
Right. Yeah.
No one would believe it. You put that in a movie. No one would believe it.
Stories in the Bible.
When they write the history and they'll be like, shortly before Trump arrived at court for for this proceeding, there was an earthquake at his golf resort, which shocked the nation or whatever. And people are going to be like, no, come on. Yeah, right?
Go on.
They're embellishing
announcing
everything.
the arrival of the host. In the Bible, they'll talk about like great natural disasters wiping out unjust people. I think it was Sodom and Gomorrah. They say that I don't know what it was that destroyed the city in explosion. I think it was built on a salt mine, one of those cities. So the fumes from sulfur caught fire and the whole place lit up. I don't know exactly, but
what, Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yeah, Gomorrah.
God smote them.
Yeah, like God struck it down. Yeah. So I wonder. I was thinking last night, like if there's some horrible tragedy about to occur on the planet Earth and God steps in and stops it with a natural disaster, like it would be horrible.
Well,
still.
Here's a question I have. I don't know if you guys have the answer for this. How did God smote Sodom and Gomorrah?
Smite. Smote is the past tense.
That's right.
Yeah, that
because
he would
smote
have smote them.
Smoted.
Right.
How did
he
smite them?
I like smited as the past
He
tense.
smate them.
There was
in
two.
such a path.
It's two.
Well, like he already did. So I'm asking, how did he do it? So it's past tense.
Wouldn't it be plural? Smeet?
Smeet.
How smitten were they? All right, sorry to interrupt you.
My point was like, was it? Does the Bible describe it as a miraculous destruction, or did God use natural means to destroy them? Right? Did a volcano erupt and wipe them out? Or was it like a beam from the sky came in low orbit, ion cannoned them into oblivion?
I don't
It
think
was
there's
rains of sulfur and fire.
Yeah, I don't think there's a natural disaster attached.
That sounds like a natural disaster. That could be a natural disaster.
Rain of sulfur and fire?
Yeah, they had salt mines.
Well,
It was
wouldn't
like
that be like? I mean, you could have.
volcano?
Well, yeah, there were the salt mines, and then Lot, his wife, turned into salt because she looked back.
was that Gomorrah?
Yeah, weren't they
Gomorrah?
fleeing? Wasn't that them?
I watched
noob.
something where they said it was a nuclear bomb.
Oh yeah,
that
I was.
aliens nuked Sodom and Gomorrah because they were debaucherous and spreading disease. And the reason why they said do not look back or you'll turn to a pillar of salt is because she got vaporized by the shockwave.
Well,
But that's one of those ancient aliens things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Run.
Ancient alien theorists say
right.
yes.
I'm not an earthquake expert. I think they call them geologists. But is the epicenter
Seismologist.
Oh, see, there we
You
go.
don't even have that
There
one.
we go. I said I think, but
You're not a vocabulist either.
yeah. is the epicenter the strongest point or just the origin point? Like, so maybe Trump was shooting out the earthquake at his enemies because it did hit New York City.
Like the eye of a hurricane?
Yeah.
So Trump's in his underground lair and he's like, we're going to teach Letitia James a lesson. Activate the device.
I mean, look at that quote. He's like, it shook very hard. That has to be a Trump quote, right? Like,
Right? Ground shook
Very hard. the hardest 4.2 earthquake you can imagine.
It would have
Felt
been
every moment of it.
It would have been more, but then they reduced my bond amount, so I just threw him a little bit of a 4 point something.
Well, so the reason I asked about whether Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by natural means, like the question is, when God takes an action, does it appear miraculous, like a magical beam of light or a volcano erupts?
I think it depends on the miracle. I mean, if you look at the Bible.
But this is why I asked, because if it is God uses natural means, then is he smiting Trump?
That's a good question.
Or has he smote New York?
I think Trump, like
What
I
is
said,
the past tense of smite?
I think that Trump, look at the electoral votes in New York and New Jersey.
It is smote. I was right.
Now,
Smoked. No, I was right.
imagine if you were to break off those two states. Trump wins.
Which
So,
states?
New
New
Jersey
York
and
and
New
New
York.
Jersey.
Oh,
You
yeah.
break them off into the ocean, Trump wins. So like I said, I think it's the Superman 1 plot, and Trump is Lex Luthor.
Trying to remove
That's right.
Yeah.
New York.
So now we're talking about super weapons, which we haven't.
But you
talked about
can't
yet.
you can't remove New York. You'd have to remove all of New England.
Wait, is that
Which-
That's okay.
Yeah, it's still
is
would
that
Trump would win.
Superman 1 or Superman Returns? Because
No,
that
that's
was-
one. That's one.
Yeah. Returns, wasn't that where Lex is trying to build a new island?
yeah, and then it would flood the half the United States.
But that's
the eastern half.
but that's not what he's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
it's-
referring to the Lex Luthor in one. Yeah.
In one, he wanted to remove a state.
He was going to knock California into the ocean, and then he would have all the beachfront property. He knew exactly, which is very Trumpian.
Is that the original Superman?
yeah.
That's so 70s. Was that like late 70s, early 80s?
70, 78. I was
so
12.
great. He bought all the property.
Yeah.
Lex
That's
Luthor, the
that's
real
such a
estate
sad
mogul.
version of Lex Luthor.
Wow.
The more modern versions are much
Yeah,
better, where
laser
he's just
beam moon bases and stuff.
the more modern version. He just thinks he's kind of like Dr. Doom. He thinks he's the only one who can save humanity, and he should be in charge. He's better than you.
So do you think these could have been weapons? Do you think these could be like geo weaponry?
I mean, I threw out the
Could be obviously.
I
But
threw out the
unlikely.
Chinese super weapon early on.
Yeah,
we got a split decision on the panel here.
And then I was like, well, wait, it's an American super weapon. They did it in Taiwan to make it look like the Chinese. Now they do it to themselves, or maybe they're just getting it. This just isn't on Trump. I mean,
Oh, Trump false flagged himself with his own earthquake device
Possible,
to make
too.
himself look like the victim.
There you go.
I don't know who's quaking.
I mean,
Who's at the center of this? earthquake?
which politician's favorite movie is The Core? Because I believe they were using an earthquake weapon, and that caused the events of that film.
Yeah, they stopped the core from spinning
Yeah.
because they were using earthquake weapons. And then they had to go down and kickstart the core again.
What if this was Jewish people digging a tunnel too deep?
On Brooklyn,
That proves it.
That could do it.
With shovels.
Tunnels in Brooklyn.
Someone mentioned you yesterday, Tim, about the farmers in California having to suck the water out of like 20,000 feet down to get to
Yep.
the water table, and then that caused seismic disruption.
It causes the whole city to sink. Wow. Pulling the water out of the ground.
Sucking.
Yeah.
I've heard about that about oil. Obviously, fracking can do that too.
Well, it's because the earth is flat, and beneath the plane is the waters of the universe, and they're pulling that out and sinking us to the bottom of the dome that we're in. That proves it.
my question
Media Matters
is,
will write that seriously.
is maybe like this much concrete is like the safest thing that you could have? Because remember Casey Neistat stuck a camera, like he pulled up a whole Brooklyn sidewalk, and it was just this much just
Yeah.
separating it from the ground. Maybe that's enough. That's earthquake proof right there. I didn't hear anything about sidewalks collapsing in New York City.
This was a
maybe
pretty
that's-
low one. I think it was 4.2.
Yeah, but
4.8.
the concrete's
I
like
thought it was
this
4.8,
thin.
right?
4.8.
Which is pretty big for the East Coast.
For the East Coast, yeah. But there's 7.5 in Taiwan. It was.
But they have more like experience with it.
And they
than-
only lost like 10 people in that. I mean, buildings crashed onto themselves.
Taiwan was
You know?
crazy. Like a whole apartment building fell over.
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
It's like a movie.
Well, they were commuting, so like I guess a lot of people in those buildings were out and going to work. It was like 9 a.m. over there or something.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was like 9:00 in the morning. I always think about if there were a real earthquake in New York, because there's a fault line that goes right under 23rd Street. That would be really bad for New York City.
Well, if there's a fault line there, that's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it's dormant. It hasn't shook in quite a while. This was like the Ramapo fault, which was Jersey, obviously, but New York could not withstand a proper earthquake. No.
Well,
Nope.
it could be a problem. I know Haiti didn't have seismic activity for 200 years, and then all of a sudden that fault line, I forgot what it's called, activated, and they had just reinforced their buildings for hurricanes.
Wow.
So they were concrete and all that, and they were not earthquake proof at all. So
crumbled.
that's why so many people died in that
Wow.
earthquake 15 years ago. Whichever you know which one I'm referring to.
It must be the end of days.
gosh, I wonder.
I can't believe someone remembered the plot of Superman Returns.
That was you.
Oh,
No, that was you. I'm
no, I
very
remembered
impressed.
Superman
Oh,
Returns.
did you?
Yeah.
That was impressive.
I was as we were just talking. I was thinking like, God, is going to say when you die, if you die, or when you speak with God, it'll be like, yeah, it was real, dude. The whole time, I guess. Why did it take you 48 or 500 years or whatever long? Why did it take you so many years to figure that out? Why did you live your life like just like you need it? Like maybe not. It's almost
I want to
silly.
give this lady a special shout out from the Post Millennial. Woke New Jersey Senate candidate says earthquake is evidence the climate crisis is real.
I died when I saw this tweet.
Yo, I experienced my first earthquake in New Jersey. We never get earthquakes. The climate crisis is real. I'm sorry, it's a cult.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's definitely a cult. It's definitely a cult.
They called it the climate crisis is the culty part because there's a lot of crises in our climate at the moment.
They keep changing.
No, the culty part is being like the sun is the pollution is causing earthquakes now.
Yeah, it's
Like, oh, dude, come on.
I went back. I looked at every prediction, weather people, climatologists, geologists, whoever that predict things, terrible things are going to happen to the environment in some way. We're going to run out of oil, or we're going to run out of natural resources, or overpopulation. And I went back to when I was born in 1966. I found 53, and they are 0 and 53. Not one climate crisis, environmental crisis that the so-called experts have come up with has ever come true. And now they want us to believe number 54. And you got to be crazy to believe 54. Why would we believe? Who would believe someone who's 0 and 53? I wouldn't believe someone who's 0 and 2.
Are you trying to say that you're willing to let us have earthquakes just so you cannot drive an electric vehicle? Shame on you, sir.
The climate predictions that lead to these, what they call the climate crisis, the big one, the predictions are made without implementing mitigating factors. I talked actually with Ben Shapiro about this. Ben's really knowledgeable about this too. Because things change. So they build a data and they're like, if things continue as they are in 10 years, we will be, they do not always,
right.
You learn a new technology completely. Like the horse poop in New York, they invented the automobile and it was completely, like
Right.
it was the
When-
biggest problem on earth.
When
in
did
the
Greta
city.
Thunberg? She was like, "We have 3 years left" or something, and and then she deleted the tweet.
Right.
Yeah,
So
she had to delete
my
it.
view is that was a load off my shoulders. I mean, like
Were
when
you
she
worried about it?
when she tweeted that out and said we had like 3 years left. Once we finally reached that point, I was just relieved. So I'm like, now it doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly. And
I'm
that's what-
chill. Like
why
we're
don't-
done. It's
Wow.
over.
And they never
Party
say
time.
that.
Well,
They
and you
never
had
say
Al
that.
Gore. You
It's
had
like a
this whole thing.
meteor is right there in the sky about to hit us, and take nothing we can do about it.
Yep.
So
What
I'm
I
ready to
always-
party, dude.
What I always think about when, people freak out about the climate and they're like, we have to do this and we have to change this about our lives and our culture and our whole civilization to appease the weather gods so that they don't kill us. It just seems so ancient. It's like what we do matters so much for the weather. We must change everything we do to appease the gods of the weather. And then just
And that's
Yeah,
what they were.
that's what they were
in the
doing.
Middle Ages.
Yeah.
How many tipping points or point of no returns have we passed by and they just like move the goalposts?
That's
Like,
right.
I feel like I'm crazy sometimes. Like maybe it is a Mandela effect. I'm like, didn't we hit this when I was like 15 years old?
And people freak out. Like the kids are all freaking out.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I can't have children or a normal life because of the
Yo.
climate, Extinction Rebellion.
When I was in grade school, when I was probably like 10, we had in class they told us that we would run out of oil by like 2010.
Right.
Because this was the mid 90s. They were like, oil is expected to run out at this point. And so we're getting worried about it. And I was like, whoa. And then like here I am.
Mitigating
still with
circumstance,
trucks
they found new oil. Like
And then
that's
they
the kind of
wonder
thing-
why you're a neurotic.
Or they figured out how to use
Right.
less oil in a combustive process.
It's like the end of days syndrome. We just humans always just want to believe that we're at the absolute pinnacle of the end
It's
times.
also the way we measure like resources is whether or not it is like an oil reserve is whether or not it's financially viable to tap it. But the thing is if you run out of the cheap, easy oil to tap or it reduces, then expensive oil like Canadian tar sands or like Venezuela has tar sands oil, that becomes more economically viable. So that goes into the reserves. So you can look at a map of like the countries with the greatest oil reserves and you'll see like randomly in like the 2010s, when gas prices went up under Bush, Canada and Venezuela go to number 1 and number 3 on the list. And you're like, they didn't just find that oil. They always had it. It just was not, the technology didn't exist. It was not viable. So to your point, about how it doesn't measure like the change. It just says if we continue at this rate and we have this much, this is why all those Malthusian economic predictions never come true. They're like, we have this many people, this much food is being grown. It's like, yeah, but when there's more people, we try to make
we're
new
gonna figure
strains.
it out.
Yeah,
Right.
We'll be able to start making oil in laboratories. Like they're doing blue crude.
We've
they're making,
already made that. a long
Yeah,
time
like
ago.
when you start
It's been
3D,
20
especially
years.
once you start 3D printing atomically into molecules, dude, we don't need to find more. It's not about drilling anymore. It's really about what we're doing with the waste byproduct of the burning of it. And that's turning it into carbon dioxide, graphene,
And the
things like that.
solution is always leftism. The solution is always socialism. It's always more government, less freedom. They never come up, like if we found out that earthquakes were caused because there wasn't enough carbon in the air, they would never tell us that. If that's what we figured out, because we can't have more carbon in the air because then you'll enjoy your air conditioning.
No, but they would, but then they would just make a reason why that means we need communism.
Or they would do that, or they would hide
They'd
it.
be like, oh, well, because of that, we have to put everyone has to have a carbon vehicle, so
Right.
you need to sign up for this government program.
Right. Everybody, everybody, we're going to everybody has to have air conditioning. Everybody has to have a gas grill. Yeah, that's what they would do.
That means all of the newcomers that are coming in and staying at these shelters are going to need their own air conditioners and cars as well, because it's a mandate to prevent the catastrophe with earthquakes.
Yeah, that's always the solution. It's never more freedom. It's never just leave me the hell alone.
You can turn it into graphene, the carbon, which is this black powder. It's just pure carbon, hexagonal lattice carbon. I don't have a diagram next to me, but pure carbon, reusable, put it in building materials, make electronics out of it and stuff. But the problem is if private companies start doing that, we might take too much out of the air, and then we'll start killing off the plant life. So we might need not a communist mandate, some sort of central mandate to make sure that we don't, as a species, eradicate our air supply.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.